St. Therese says that whenever my enemy provokes me to combat, I try to behave like a soldier. Well, in today's gospel, it's our commander-in-chief who shows us how to behave like a soldier. He gives us a crash course in confronting temptation. St. Augustine, commenting on that gospel, says that if in Christ we have been tempted, in him we overcome the devil. If in Christ we have been tempted, in Christ we overcome the devil. He says, see yourself as tempted in him and see yourself as victorious in him. He could have kept the devil from himself, but if he were not tempted, he could not teach you how to triumph over temptation. In the gospel, there are the three temptations. The first temptation is, if you are the Son of God, command these stones become loaves of bread. Let your natural desires order your life. That's the temptation. Let the world order your life. We say when there's a conflict between the soccer schedule and the mass schedule, the world yields to religious obligation. Okay? But some people allow, like we say, the world schedule to take precedence over God's schedule, to allow the natural desires to take precedence over our real responsibilities to God. To allow the lesser to trump the greater. We become like spiritual tumbleweeds, we say, one priest says, following the winds of nature. And unfortunately, it's the winds of our fallen human nature we end up following. St. Augustine says of his early life, I abandon you to pursue the lowest things of your creation. I was dust, going after dust. Okay? I was dust going to dust. That second temptation. Also on that first one, a few weeks ago we had that article on country music, Casey Musgrave's Follow Your Arrow. And she says it's the ballad of this generation's demise. Was pretty much speak up, drink up, pretty much spit your tongue out at the world. Like to live a life without truth, with no direction, just following whichever way your arrow wants to point. And she says that leads us to the hellish wasteland of that terrible philosophy that leads us to think that we are the center of the universe. And so the proper response is to point your arrow. Rather than follow your arrow, point your arrow toward Christ. Because when we just follow our arrow, they say freedom becomes absolute. That's relativism. To make freedom, rather than truth, the absolute. The second temptation was, if you are the Son of God, throw yourself down. God will send his angels to protect you. Let's see. You be the Lord of your life. That's the second temptation. Let God be your servant. Seize control of your life. But that's the great reversal which is at the heart of all sin. The ego replaces God as the center. My life is all about me. That third temptation, all the kingdom of the world I will give you if you prostrate yourself and worship me. Let Satan be the Lord of your life. Like they say there are three responses to evil. One is to resist evil, one is to yield to evil. The third temptation is to fall down and worship evil. Okay? That's that third temptation. And obviously it's kind of an irony that the prince of this world, the devil, offers the King of Kings and Lord of Lords all the kingdoms of the earth. Okay? Obviously, Satan doesn't realize that he's speaking to the one who possesses all power and all glory. And we say that gospel takes place in the desert. The temptations take place in the desert. And the symbolism is that God put Adam and Eve in a garden. That's where Adam and Eve started out, in the Garden of Eden. A garden is a place of flourishing. And that place of flourishing meant that God wanted them to prosper. God wanted our good. God wanted the good of Adam and Eve. But because of sin, the garden dried up. They were expelled from the garden. It became a desert. Life dried up. So Jesus Christ comes to bring us from the desert back to the garden. Okay? His life, his public life, begins in the desert. It ends in the garden at the resurrection. Okay? And this Lent is that journey with him. Okay? From the desert to the garden, from death to life. From that place where life is dried up to that place where life flourishes.